Hi, mobile application developers. I want to go through the remaining slides that I didn't get to in class today. These are the slides that implement view binding, which I didn't get completely running because I left out of some very important modifications, and we'll go through that. And also how to add an icon to your app. So I'd like to demonstrate that for you in this video. All right. Well, what we did, where we left off was with a working app. What we had was we had modified our main activity file to to have references to the various controls that we added to the user interface. We used find view by ID to get references to the various controls on our user interface, in our user interface. And once we got those references, we created an on-click listener as shown here. And we then added the logic. The on-click listener lets us create some code that will respond to a click event on the convert button. And what we do here is we get the string that the user presumably has entered. We convert it to a double, and then we come down here to this if then else, and we compare it to null to see if it is null. If the user entered in a value into that string that wasn't a valid number, double or null would return a null. So we first compare it to null, and if it's not null, we then check to see if the convert to Fahrenheit button is checked. If it is checked, then we're going to convert that input to Fahrenheit. If it is not checked, we're going to convert the input to Celsius. And once that conversion is done, converter F to C or C to F returns a double. And so what we need to do here is once we've called converter, one of the converter methods, we then set the returned value. We change the returned or convert the returned double to a string, and then we set the text of the input or the edit text field to what our converted value is. And if coming back down to this else here, this we would execute the else if the originally returned converted string was not valid, and we would then display invalid input into the text field. So we can try this, see if it works, by putting in a number like 98.6, and which is a typical Fahrenheit value, temperature value for a human being. And let's convert that to Celsius. So I'll click convert to Celsius, click convert, and we get 37, which is a valid number. All right, so we've got a working version of this. But now what we want to do here is we want to add a feature called view binding. And what view binding enables us to do is it enables us to get rid of these find view by ID calls. And why would we want to do that? Well, find view by ID is handy as far as it goes, but it introduces some potential problems in our code. For example, if I mistype the resource ID, there's a chance that I might not notice that, and the find view by ID will fail, and it'll fail at runtime. When it is actually running on a device. And if this passes, testing misses that, doesn't catch that error, the app is going to fail right away. In the user's hands. And We certainly want to avoid something like that. And so find view by ID lets us get around find view by ID. View binding does that because what view binding does is it lets us determine at compile time. It actually prevents us from making an error like misspelling an ID. What we do is when we enable it, it creates a class that contains all of the references to our user interface controls. And this can be determined at build time. It doesn't have to happen at runtime. So, if we, refer to a control that it doesn't exist, or we misspelled the ID, that's going to be trapped at compile time. And as a matter of fact, it's going to be trapped even before compile time while we're at editing time. So let's do that. Let's turn on view binding and get rid of some of or all of these find view by ID calls. All right, and so let me just go through this slide right here, and I'm going to enable view binding. And the way we enable it is we have to come down to our Gradle scripts, and we need to we're going to enable it in one of our build.gradle files. We're going to enable it in the module build.gradle file. Okay, and the way we do it is we have to find the Android group in our module build.gradle file, and then somewhere in here, usually it can be at the bottom, it can be in the middle somewhere, but we'll put it at the bottom, and we're going to type in the following little definition. It's going to be build features, and then we're going to open up a block here, and we're going to say view binding, all one word, camel case, true. Okay, and that is all we need to type in to enable view binding. Once we do type that in, though, we need to click Sync Now at the top of the file here, of the edit pane, and it's going to actually create a class for each of our XML layout files. And since we only have one XML layout file called activity main, it's going to create a class called activity main binding. And that class is going to contain references to all of our controls. All right. So I'm going to come back to my source here. All right. And what I will do now is I'm going to change some of this code around. I'm no longer going to use this particular version of set content. All right. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to comment that out. So I'm just going to click on the set content view, and I'm going to press. I've got a Macintosh here, so I'm going to press Command /, and to comment that out. On a Windows, it's going to be Control /. And I'm going to put the code that I've got here in this particular slide here. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to retrieve a reference to the created activity main binding class. I'm going to call this class the binding. All right. So I'm going to just say, I'm going to create a constant here called binding. Whoops. Like so. And I am then going to call my activity main binding inflate, and I'm going to pass in a defined reference called layout inflator. All right, this is defined in appcompat activity. Okay. And so that gives me a reference to the binding. And now what I need to do is retrieve a reference to the binding root, which is going to be the layout view. And I'm going to call this my view, like so. All right. And I need the view because I'm going to now call setContentView with that view. And that's going to associate the our definitions in our XML layout to our activity. Okay? And so now once we've done that, we no longer need these calls to find view by ID. So I can go ahead and comment these out. Again, I'm going to type in command / and right here now we can see that all of these these previous references are now flagged as errors because the definitions have been removed. So what I need to do now is I need to just precede each of these with a binding reference here. Oops. Like that. I need to do that for all of the control or view references. Like so. All right. Now notice that, why was I able to do this? Well, view binding, when it is enabled, it creates this class, this activity main binding class. And in the class, it creates all of these references, all of these instance variables that contain references to my XML controls. And it automatically names the reference, the name of the instance variable that holds the reference. It names it based on the ID. And what it does is it names it, it takes the ID and it makes it a camel case version of it. So for example, the ID for the convert button here is convert_button. And what it does is it removes the underscore and then camel cases each of the words. So this is going to be convert and then capital button, which is what that is. So that's why I named these these variable reference as I did originally. And that's typically how you would name variables in Kotlin anyway. So now I've gotten rid of all of my view by IDs because I've enabled view binding. And now if I run the app, it should work as before. All right, so if I put in, for example, 98.6 and I convert to Celsius, I get 37.0. Right? If I convert back, I get 98.6 again with a little bit of error, which is, to be expected. Floating point isn't exactly perfect. So that is how you implement view binding in an Android app. Okay. By the way, you can see here in the imports that the button, the edit, and the radio button declarations are now faded out. That's because they're in the activity main binding class. You'll see that you can see the pattern to the name here. When you activate view binding, it creates this class for each of the layout files, and it similarly camel cases this name and appends binding to it, as you can see here. Because it's a class, it starts with a capital letter. All right. So once we've done that, we can now move on to our next addition, and that's going to be the icon. We're going to add an icon to our app. All right. And in order to add an icon, we're going to modify our manifest file. Okay, but we don't have to directly change it. We're gonna use some functionality that's provided in Android Studio to automatically, or to add an icon through a wizard type of an interface. By the way, here's a reference to the icon here, and it points to a file in our resources, and it's going to be in the MIP map folder. And there's a variety. This is the default icon, and we're gonna change it to something that you want, or that whatever we want as a developer. All right. There are two types of icons in an app typically. One for older versions of Android, and one for newer versions, and that's what this slide 25 is talking about. These are the legacy. There are what are known as the legacy icons, and these are for versions of Android 7 and before. All right. Legacy icons are round. All right. Now the newer icons are called adaptive launcher icons, and they are they're more rectangular. They're like round recs, and we need to generally create both. And the interface in Android Studio that will let us create them is called Android Asset Studio, and it will modify the files and create both sets of icons. All right. So the way we can open it up typically is you can right-click on the res folder, as I've done here, and you can open up, let's see, what are we looking for? We're looking for new image asset. So I'm going to click on new and scroll down to image asset and select that. And we get this interface. All right. And what we can do here is basically select our icons. There's a bunch of built-in clip art that we can use. You can also use your own art that you've either created or found online somewhere. But we're going to choose something that's built in here. All right. So we can we have a selection here of things that we can choose. We're going to choose launcher icons, adaptive, and legacy. The name is fine, and yeah, this layer name is fine as well. And here we're going to choose from we're going to specify the asset type. Okay. If you were going to provide your own art, you would select image and then provide the path to the location of. Actually, here there's an XML file that describes the art. We're not going to do that. We're going to go to clip art, and we can select. We can click on this clip art button here. We'll get a choice of images to choose from. But before we do that, you can also create a text-based icon as well. So you can say something like CS 347 like that, and create an icon that has some text in it. You can also change its color, like so. At least you should be able to. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. You need to choose it up in that area. You can see how I'm changing the foreground. If I want to change the background color, I'd have to select background layer and choose some color here like that, whatever I want to choose here. All right, maybe something a little bit lighter. Okay, I don't know, whatever you want to choose, you can go with. All right, but we're not going to choose text. We're going to choose clip art. And so I'm going to select clip art here, and I'm going to select this. I'm going to click on the clip art button, and I get this dialog box, which has a bunch of different symbols and drawings. And you can get, there's like a two-tone style. There's a variety of styles here. There's groupings. Our app, we want to find it. We want to get an icon that's going to be that's going to make some sense for our app. That's going to be related to the function of the app. So let me type in temperature. See if there's something. Nope, nothing for temperature. How about conversion? Nothing. Weather. Ooh, you know what? Let's. I'm in a particular group here. Let's try that again. Temperature. Nope. Temp. Weather. Really? There's got to be something. Let's go to filled. Okay, we're not, how about cloud? Let's see, is there cloud? Yeah, okay. Let's see if there's a two-tone cloud. If that'll work, let's try that. And we have a cloud. If we want to change its color, we can. Let's make that a little bit, let's give it a nice bluish color. Oops. I'm not sure why that's not changing. There we go. Kind of a gray blue. Let's give the background a, let's make the background blue as well, but a lighter sky blue. Something like that maybe. I don't know, not so great. Let's make that foreground a little bit darker. Here, let's go there. There we go. All right, and then we can tweak it. We can make some adjustments here. We can scale it up or down. We want it to appear. By the way, this is a squircle. This shape. It's kind of a mashup of a square and a circle. This trim function. Not sure what the trim actually does. That's okay. We're going to stick with this. We'll stick with this, okay? And we want to stay within the line here. That's kind of our boundary, right? And I get a warning here. It says icon with same name already exists and will be overwritten. That's fine. We want to do that, okay? We do want to override that. The red files are files that are going to be overwritten. Fine, we're going to do that. We're going to finish. And now we have our icon. So now when we run our app, we are going to, we should see it in the app collection on our phone. We have an error. Let's rebuild. Let's just clean the project and rebuild. And let me stop that there. Let's rebuild. Let's see if we still have an error. Okay, no error that time. Let's run it. All right. Okay, so our app is running. If I put in, let's say 100, I should get to 212, and I do. That's great. But when I close the app and I open up the app set, I can see here that my icon has been changed. Okay, So that's how you change the icon of your app. And I believe that is all. All right. Yeah, the assignment is to add view binding and an icon, and add a change, add a custom modification to your app. Something like maybe changing the background color here, or changing the fonts, or some combination of that. So something like give it a cyan color like that. All right, and that's the assignment for this week. So have fun creating the app, and I will see you next time.